I think it's really interesting how we talk about learning and how when you separate the body from just the speech, like when you talk about something, it's all in your brain, right? But when you separate them, you get to feel things and put yourself in different positions. And I think that the fact that you're putting yourself in a different positions allows you to understand the problem or the issue or whatever you're talking about from another perspective. And I think the learnings come from, okay, I'm not thinking, I'm feeling, and then you learn from those feelings, which allows you to have a lot more empathy. And I guess we all learn in different ways, right? So it's about how we have all of these variables for learning, which is not only in your mind, but also how you feel the world and how you react to the world. And you need to sometimes separate, okay, I'm going to put my mind on the side and just experience this and learn from that process. It's very interesting.
I think that this is what you're suggesting, Danielle, is one of the reasons that Boal's work became so interesting to me, because as a teacher working with learners, but also as somebody who is learning to be a teacher, one of the things that I recognized about myself is that I had figured out a lot about how to read and think from learning how to act, which is how to think of subtext, how to think about how my body or my voice might express something beyond the words that are on the page. Like, that was a very powerful lesson for me. And when I came to do my research work to think about it, that was one of the things that I was really interested in bringing. And it seemed like Boal had already thought that through. Like, he'd already figured out how this works in some way. And so I was really grateful to him in that regard, because it married a lot of the ideas that I sort of understood in my body and maybe in my head as well, but I hadn't been able to figure out necessarily how to translate into practice.
This relates to what you talk about, the cultural shift that you went through in approaching Boal. You talk about your own mind shift, entering Boal's use of theater as democratized space where spect actors develop community awareness and social action. I wonder if you might expand a bit on your experiences related to this mind shift of going from more traditional theater, which Boal actually walks through in the first half of his book, the theoretical work, going from the ancient Greek theater all the way to Brecht and to modern times. What was your transition like?
Well, there were moments in my life when I was younger when I was very interested in what I understood to be theater at the time, and I was very interested in the idea of performance, and I was very interested in the ego that goes along with acting and getting cast and all the pieces of that. But by the time I came to Boal's work later in my life, those things were they had less appeal to me, and I was much more interested in the sort of the social aspects of theater, less in the performance, more in the social aspects of it, in terms of how people related to each other, what happened when a group of people who didn't know each other well at all got together and wanted to make something good, and as a result of that intention were able to put aside their sort of individual ego in some ways and come together and create something beautiful or lasting or lovely, or a nice performance. So that's what was really interesting to me at that moment. I was less interested in sort of like being a really good actor and having other people recognize that about me. And I was much more interested in the processes that actors involve themselves in to ultimately create whatever the art is that they're working to make. And so because that was sort of an interest at that moment, when I found Freire and then when I found Boal and then other folks who have thought about his work in expanded ways, that really connected with that notion of sort of the group work, the social dynamics, the possibility of that becoming its own important process. And when I began to think like that, it really changed my idea about what theater could be. And then Boal, of course, just confirmed a lot of what I was thinking, and of course expressed it in ways that I would never have been able to express it